It is Memorial Day weekend, and we've done some things we remembered like fallen Star Wars heroes in the past. We've done other things wrapped around Memorial Day weekend. And Disney villains, not that they've not been a big thing, they've been a big thing for a long time, but it's been even more put to the forefront recently. Of course, tickets gone on sale for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. A lot of villains there.
Right.
Oogie Boogie Bash will go on sale before too long. That'll be announced not too long from now. The villains there. Of course, there's already been the Top of the World Lounge villains there at Bay Lake Towers. There's the new show debuting this week.
Yes.
Villains, Disney Villains Unfairly Ever After at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And, announced just last year at the D23 Expo, entire Villains Land coming to Magic Kingdom. Villains are very much on the forefront. So we thought for this Memorial Day, maybe we could remember some of our favorite Disney villains, right, Michelle?
Right. And kind of how they have changed or evolved over time as well.
Yeah, because they're, we go back to the classic villains up to the villains, and some you see in some of the movies today, there has been a bit of a change, some similarities, but some change. But they are all the characters that we love to loathe. And so I think it's fun to go through this and kind of discuss some of their origins, how they've evolved, and maybe talk about a few of our favorite these baddies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start this one. We'll go way back back to the classic era, the beginning of the Disney villains. And of course, the original Disney villain was Pete, Pegleg Pete,
right?
Or Pete the Cat, from Steamboat Willie, was the first Disney villain. His birthday is the same as Mickey's, is the same as Minnie's. So, that it's good to note that Pegleg Pete is the first Disney villain, right, Michelle?
Very good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. But let's get to the movie villains, of course, the actual movie villains, the classic era movie villains. And some of them. The Evil Queen, of course, Lady Tremaine from Cinderella, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. Of course, some of your favorites. Tell us a little bit about those villains, Michelle.
Well, I think some of the things that they have in common is they are evil. They're considered totally evil. But they also have an elegance that is actually accentuates some of their terrifying perspectives or personality types. And, seemingly they're driven by things like revenge, vanity, or power, the desire for power to be on top, and I think what Disney did well was the voice actors that they had for these pieces were brilliant. They were very powerful sounding voices. They did use one voice actress for both Maleficent and Lady Tremaine, which I thought was interesting. But I think that's the personality type that you see in these classic characters. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the richness of these characters, the fact that they are pure evil. I mean, you do learn a few things more about them and some backstory behind them. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. And also, if you look at the slide, if you're watching us on YouTube, the slide here, the animation styles are so different with each one of them, but they're beautiful, fantastic, and they totally fit the film that they're in, showing, what these baddies are all about.
Yeah, that they all have a very strong look to them, very definitive features on their face and things like that, and long fingers and stuff. But yeah, like you said, if you're just looking at the film itself, you don't know their backstory. They just seem like evil, bad people, like a very black and white kind of perspective.
Yeah, you don't really know outside of why the Wicked Queen, the Evil Queen, is going after Snow White, other than that she's just jealous because she's the fairest of them all. The mirror is telling her she's the fairest of them all. Like, no, it should be me. I'm going to kill her. I'll be the fairest of them all. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
Lady Tremaine, I think the interesting about her look is that she's very, very proper looking, but deep inside that she is just evil, wicked, nasty. but she, is trying to pull off this part of this proper lady
Right.
Tremaine, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, with her especially, to me personally, I feel that, I mean, the cruelty, almost the tauntingness, like when Cinderella's trying to get ready for the ball and she says, well, if,
Yeah.
you have your chores
Right.
done and things like that, or, it's just like not just like, okay, well, I mean, it's bad to say something, yeah, killer, but I mean, just to be taunting
Hmm.
their evilness is just, to me, puts them in such a massive category of that.
Meanwhile, you have someone like Cruella, who is obviously insane, like a psychopath. And then her animation just makes her look even more
I
insane.
know,
I
I
mean,
know.
it comes through in how she's drawn and the eyes doing weird things, and
Right.
just how she's looked in her crazy hair and all this stuff, and then what she wears. Totally makes sense for her character. And then you go for Maleficent, and there's knowing that she's part witch
Mhm.
in part dragon. She can also transform herself into dragon. Her animation has that look about her, but also
Right.
this gothic style, which fits Sleeping Beauty's
Mhm.
art, its animation so perfectly. It is just the stylings that the animators did for all these characters is beyond compare, no question.
Right, yeah, totally agree, totally agree. So, do you have one in particular that either you are really enjoy watching or that you're terrified of?
I'm terrified of them all, but
Yeah.
I love Cruella. She's just the right insane for me. I mean, yes, she butchers animals and wears them as a trophy. That's really, really, I mean, it's all really, really bad. Killing
Right.
people, killing animals, doesn't matter. It's really, really bad. But she's just crazy. And
Yeah.
I love it. And seeing her in the parks, I love it even more because she's snarky and funny and
Right.
crazy, and it's great. And so I just love Cruella de Vil.
Agreed with that for sure. Like I said, Lady Tremaine to me is just very terrifying to think that no matter what situation you're going to get into, she's going to make it bad for you.
Right. For sure. For sure.
So,
So let's move on to the next era, and that's kind of the Renaissance shift. Back when we saw Disney shift a lot in what they were doing, and that happened to be with their villains as well. They did the same thing there with a lot of them. So give us some of the examples of some of the Renaissance villains, Michelle.
okay, well, you have, I mean, I think one of the first recognized ones because of being that like the Little Mermaid. Like I'm thinking, I the characters are the Little Mermaid. You have Ursula, and that film being kind of that kicked off the Renaissance. But I mean, how just amazing she looked. And to answer your question, some of the other ones that we saw during that Renaissance period is Scar from The Lion King, obviously, Jafar, Hades, Gaston. I mean, I know there's more, but I think those were the ones that were really highlighting that Renaissance era of how they were changing, maybe being a little bit more flashy and things. What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I also felt like they're more well-rounded in a little bit. In fact, that I mean, not saying that you don't quite get the backstory yet about those characters. Some of them we get to learn a little bit more about as we move on, but more, they are still evil, but they're not just bad. I mean, they're snarky and funny, and and there's things that make you laugh about some of these villains that add an extra something, an extra oomph. That's why I feel like some of these villains are some of the favorites that people have, is
Right.
because of this time. One, the movies were so great, but then part of having a great movie is having a great bad guy. I really believe that that's true. You need the protagonist, but if you don't have a good antagonist, then what's the point, to it? So having these characters like this that are so devious, yet will make you laugh at times. It'll make you really despise them. But then at the same time, you can see how ridiculous and silly they are at different times.
Exactly. And I do think in the storytelling, for some of these especially, you do get not a lot of backstory, like you said, but a touch. I mean, from Ursula, you hear how she was, she was part of it. She was part of the, the big life, and kind of got pushed aside. And Scar saying, if it wasn't for Mufasa's son being born, he would be the heir to the throne. And I mean, and Hades talking about hearing the prediction of what was going to happen, and so you can kind of see their motivations and a little bit of their backstory, not being so it's all they're just pure evil. They have something that has pushed them maybe in a certain direction.
Yeah, so you get a little bit of that. Again, more well-rounded characters, just a little bit closer to that. Each one of them, I think that like I was mentioning already, each one of these would be high on their people's list, if not top of their list, for their favorite Disney villains. I think Ursula definitely is one of those. Gaston, his vanity is just insane. He's just such an egomaniac, yet because of it, he's so funny. As long as you know it going in, who he is,
right?
You can deal with it. Scar is just so devious and sinister in his way. Hades is just crazy and funny, and is always looking for an example, a way to make things happen, but he just does it in a snarky way. And then there's just Jafar, who again, another just total bad, evil guy, looking for power in any way he possibly can, and abusing people to get it that way.
Right.
Just amazing. And then you talk about their songs. I mean, some of these have amazing songs, not all of them. Jafar doesn't really have a song.
Right.
Hades doesn't really have a song. But Poor Unfortunate Souls is one of the greatest villain songs of all time. If it's not that, then maybe it's Be Prepared.
Right.
From Scar, from The Lion King. And of course, Gaston is such an amazing song. And it's a rouser. It's a rouser of a song, whether it be in the animated version or the live action version. It is just a fantastic piece. So, and the Beauty of the Beast stage show, if you've ever seen that, it's so good. It's like a showstopper. It's so amazing. So all these songs are perfect for these villains.
For sure. And actually, Gaston, you could also say the other song where he's rallying up the townspeople as being a villain song too. I mean, he is convincing people that they have to go and kill, right? And it's just kind of also a very, prominent villain song as well.
I mean, I think Gaston is really the villain song, but I do agree with you on that one is perfect too. But they're just amazing characters that I love, and you don't get often an opportunity to meet them in the parks, but when you do, you're getting Hades a little bit more often recently. You got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that I appreciate that Disney has done with these new version of villains is kind of giving them a humorous side, that once in a while, like you said, where you call it snarky or just these little puns or whatever. I do think they've given them more of a humorous or campy side to them that I thought you didn't see that in the classic ones so much, but you see that now.
Yeah, camp is a good word for it. There's a little bit of that with them, but you still see how bad they are, how nasty they are, how evil they are. And yet you can enjoy them. You can have some fun with them because they are, yes, they're bad, and you want them to go down when it's all said and done. Yet you can laugh at some of their actions, some of the things they say, some of the things they do because of the fact of who they are.
Yeah, they have a lot more charisma,
for sure.
They're developed into their storyline or their personality. So
yeah, really good. And I think they actually took that, and as you've seen some of the more classic villains that we spoke of earlier, after the Disney Renaissance, they took some of those traits, and I'm not saying they changed those characters, but enhanced them. So when you meet them at the parks, when you see them in some of the subsequent films about them, you get a little bit more of those pieces of snark and that more well-roundedness added to them. And I think the Renaissance was kind of that what kicked that all off.
Yeah, exactly. So
very cool. All right, so the next era is now. It's the current area. It's from the 2000s on to today. And these characters are much more complex in many regards. I mean, there you can see from a lot of them. Now, there are still some just purely evil ones, but you can see some reasoning behind the actions of a few of them. Talking about, like likes of Dr. Facilier, Mother Gothel, Hans, who, yeah, I guess he's the villain of Frozen, but we all know who the real villain is of Frozen, right?
Yes.
Right? We do. Talk to me about it sometime. I'm just not going to do it on this show. Professor Robert Callahan from Big Hero 6, Don Bellwether from Zootopia, and more recently, Magnifico from Wish. These are kind of some of the more modern villains. I'll tell you what, some of the more modern films, there isn't a true villain at all.
Right.
We may get into that a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
It's more kind of generic, or it's more situations put these our protagonists at difficulties, but these are still true heroes. So what's kind of the calling card for these villains, Michelle?
Well, I think again, you get a little glimpse of the backstory. You get a little understanding of what kind of drew them into the path that they took. A lot of times it has to do with trauma or misunderstanding, some prejudice things surrounding them. So you kind of get some of that, So whether you're talking like with what's his name, the Professor Callahan, that his concern over what happened with his daughter, and I don't want to give spoilers in case somebody hasn't seen Big Hero 6 yet, but anyways, having that and how that kind of drove him to become revengeful or whatever, and you have Hans, who was feeling like, I'm on the bottom of the totem pole. My brother's got it all.
He's got what, like 12 brothers?
Yeah, I have nothing, I mean, you kind of start getting that. I mean, even with Magnifico, I mean, the fact that, yes, he is evil, but his intentions initially were to try to protect the people of the town and because he had a rough start. And yet what that took over for him and his personality.
Right. So, I mean, I think I still, I'm going to go back to Magnifico on here in a second. They're still purely evil. Like, I feel like Mother Gothel, I mean, you can understand a little bit, she had this flower that was protecting her beauty and keeping her young for years and centuries, really. And then that was taken away from her. It was just stolen from her.
Right.
And she felt like that should have been still hers. It was taken away from her, yes, to save the queen and, make sure that Rapunzel was born. Spoiler alert, a little late, but it really comes down to it. She kidnapped a child, kept him trapped for years, and was willing to kill to keep being able to be beautiful. I mean, there's vanity, there's evil. I mean, she's kind of more a callback to the classic villain, but there is some more well-roundedness to her.
Well, especially for the fact that, yes, she did kidnap, Rapunzel. No question that was a bad thing, but she didn't mistreat her. She wasn't Lady Tremaine, she didn't keep her. She provided her things and she tried to make her happy. She just kept her secluded. Again, I'm not taking sides with her. They're totally wrong what she did. However, she wasn't mistreating completely.
Not completely. Mostly. 95%.
Imprisoned. She was imprisoning her.
There was 5% of true love there.
Yeah.
For her hair.
Yes. But I mean, she didn't look disheveled like when you look at Cinderella, what clothes she was, and that she had to, serve her hand and foot and things like that.
Just to give her the benefit of the doubt, which I don't really want to do, but just for a second, before she kidnapped a baby Rapunzel, she did try and cut off her hair in hopes that she could just take the hair back. And then when she saw it died, when it was off of Rapunzel's head, I need to take the whole package.
Right.
So,
so I'm not trying to say she was good. And she was also very manipulative too, as well. And that's something that you see a lot in a lot of these characters.
Yeah. Speaking of manipulative, how about Dr. Facilier? Again, somebody who I think is pretty much just a bad guy. I mean, even yes, he got a bad rap in life, but I mean, I think he's just power hungry. He just wants to get what he doesn't have. So he's going to manipulate, trick, do anything he can to try and make that happen. And that's exactly what he tries to accomplish in The Princess and the Frog.
Right. And he doesn't care that it's going to hurt people at all.
Right. Yeah. And, I mean, in some way, Hans, yes, he can understand his backstory. Again, not the truth.
Not justify it, just understand
it. He can't, he wouldn't be the true villain of this movie. He would not have been the villain except for the true villain doing his actions earlier on in the movie. But Hans, the fact that he was willing to be devious and move on, and take advantage of a young girl who, basically has been locked away and hasn't been around people and is just looking for somebody to love her, especially just after losing her parents not that long ago.
Right.
That's pretty nasty and sneaky and devious and bad.
Oh, yeah. And then eventually trying to manipulate the whole town for his benefit.
Sure. One you passed over a little bit there, but Dawn Bellwether is interesting because of the fact that, she's bad because she has been passed over because of her size. That's why she kind of moves towards and helps Judy Hopps in many ways to become more accomplished and everything.
Right.
But she's trying to achieve a goal of trying to move herself up in the world, because just being her, a little tiny lamb, basically in this world of these giant behemoths, these giant, lions and rhinos and elephants and everything else. She's not being noticed and not being put to the position where she feels like she deserves to be. So she kind of takes things wrongly, although you can understand it a little bit, the wrong way into her own hands and tries to manipulate the system in a way to promote herself.
Agreed. Her backstory is more told by actually seeing how she's treated and how, she doesn't get respect, and no matter what she does, and she can get yelled at and, put in the tiniest of offices, like you said, just kind of that very, I want to say, antiquated thought process of, you're small, you're petite, you must not have much to offer.
Right.
Exactly. And you're a female.
Yes. And all those things together put her in a bad position. And again, tried to, in a twisted way, the wrong way to go about it, tried to do something, but you can kind of understand it. And that goes to Magnifico too. Now, here's what I'm going to say about what makes a really good villain to me is that you get to a point where you can see their point of view. You can understand them up to a point, and then they just take it too far.
Right.
And that's where, when you can understand, relate to a villain a little bit, but then see that, they went way too wacky with it. Not wacky. Wacky's a bad term. That sounds funny. Too crazy. Wacko.
Right.
Or too crazy with it, too evil with it, too devious with it. Magnifico, the same thing. You understood his point of view of like, I'm going to keep these wishes safe for you, and then I'm going to delve them out later, but they're going to keep you safe. I'm going to build up this community for you and keep you safe. But then he started, once he got that, it was the power kind of took over him. The feeling of being in so much control took over him. And yes, the vanity again took over him as well. And it slipped him down the wrong path from where the initial goal was. Right. And even his wife said that in the movie. Again, spoiler alert for that. She says, I loved him. He was a great man, but I've been blinded to all the things that he's done wrong over the last several years because of that love. But now I know, he's gone off the edge.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens in that film.
Yeah. And I think that shows in this era, a lot of these characters, you could say that about Mother Gothel. Like you said, she wasn't initially trying to disrupt that family. She just wanted the power back that the flower gave her. And she went too far with it, and the same thing with Han. I think he thought initially is, all right, let me marry a princess and then I'll have something, at least equivalent, if not over my brothers, and he just continued going too far with it.
He kind of assumed that was the only way that he could make something of himself in that world, was to find a way into a relationship, which, I mean, honest with you, I mean, we've been watching Downton Abbey recently. It's not unknown for people trying to get their daughters or get themselves into rich families or families with titles or whatever to be able to further their cause within these systems that they're within. So it's not unheard of. He just, again, went about it in the completely wrong way.
Right, exactly. Then he was causing harm versus just trying to.
So he was willing to kill people.
Exactly.
Or watch them die, one way or the other. Either way, just to achieve his goal.
Right.
So, as I mentioned earlier, also this is the time when we kind of saw those villain-free narratives, where they're great movies that maybe don't have a traditional villain. You can kind of point to somebody or some situation that, maybe is sort of the antagonist, but it's more the general situation more than just necessarily a person. Encanto is that, of course, you look at the abuela there, and you first and foremost look is like, yes, she's kind of the bad person, but she's just lost her way, and she just needs somebody to remind her of the reason behind what they're doing, behind the miracle and everything.
Right. And she's not trying to hurt anybody or necessarily take something away from. She's just not appreciating everything that is available to her.
Yes, she's focused on the wrong things. Again, she thinks to keep the family together, she needs to keep this one way, and everybody needs to do this and do that, and everything needs to be perfect in the household. Everything needs to go exactly perfectly, but that's not the facts. That's just kind of what she felt at that point. And when she was pointed out to her that that's not how this started, that's not where this came from, that's not where, this miracle came from. Love, it is a sacrifice of love, and that's what you need to do for the family here, is continue to show that love and show that sacrifice.
Exactly.
So and then there's like, hashtag real men love Frozen too. Yes, I mean, you could look at, I can tell you right now, you could look at the real villain of Frozen and look at his father as the villain sort of that, even though he's not really in the story. It's kind of telling the tale of something very evil that happened long before Anna and Elsa were even born. That's kind of where it's from, but it's more of, a journeys of self-discovery and everything. And that's in, getting everything together and righting wrongs from the past is what that movie's more about.
Yeah, exactly. And, dealing with doubt and fear. Yeah.
And loss.
Right.
All those things. So very much so.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go ahead and move forward to what's been kind of more common recently, which is kind of the reimagining of some of these villain-centric storylines. And they've been done in a variety of different ways in films, in television shows. There's the movies, the Maleficent movies, the Cruella film, the series Once Upon a Time, which really is interesting. If you've never watched Once Upon a Time, highly recommended. It'll make you look at characters in a different way. It tells the story, but it also tells you some things about them that maybe they could have gone a different route if things had just changed for them. And in some instances, once they realize that and they get support, they do take a different route. And maybe that their story has been told poorly, and so they just kind of lived up to it. Anyway, it's really, really great storytelling within a television show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it really focuses on the complexities of these people, these individuals, and what's gone on in their life, and maybe again try to shed light on why they act the way they do or have made decisions.
Right. And so, like, let's go to Maleficent. She gets shown as a character who, the reason she's so bad is because she was completely wronged. She was set up into a position that, she was in love with this person and then cut loose. And, despite the fact, she was always wary of the human world, and then to embrace the human world and then be cast off essentially from it. You can see why she was not happy with humans, except for this one child that she actually dearly loved. That's part of the backstory behind that. And I find it fascinating that twist to that storyline.
And I was just going to say, it really shows a tender side to her. So again, not all black and white, not all evil and always being bad to everybody, but, to having some tender moments and tender caringness come through in her character.
Completely. So I was surprised when we saw the first Maleficent movie. I didn't think I was going to like it at all. And I really, really enjoyed the second one. The first one, though, really, really good. I really, really enjoyed it. And I like a well-rounded character. And that's true of heroes as well. Everybody is not purely good. Well, I'm not going to say that. There are some people, but it's such a small minority that are purely good, and small minority of people that are purely evil. Most people are well-rounded. You just sway to one side or the other. They're well-rounded people. So you'll have good sides and dark sides. And hopefully the good side is way outshines your dark side, but everybody has a little piece of that. and I think I think there's a lot of that in there. Cruella, I mean, struggling to try and make it as a fashion designer in the fashion industry,
Right.
and having those issues and struggles, making it through. And, you can see where she tried to change some things about her to make it. And then again, she just went completely psychopath.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I think, obviously for films, they want to have something big, something really flashy, and I think they have that and able to give that to her and her character.
Yeah, completely. Talking about Once Upon a Time again, I want to touch back on that a little bit, because one of the things I love about it is you get the twist. You get to see why some of the people are bad, and you see them as bad. The evil queen, you see her as bad from Snow White. Captain Hook, he does some bad things. You see him as bad. But you also see them do wonderful, amazing things for love in general, and how that love can turn them into other people. You can also see some people that people think are heroes, like Peter Pan, and find out maybe they're not as heroic as you thought they were. That they, some of the things they did are a little bit more selfish than you thought, which actually doesn't surprise me about Peter Pan a little bit, even from the middle. Like, yeah, I could easily see Peter. He does some pretty wicked things, basically. I mean, yes, he takes in these lost boys or whatever, but keep himself young, keep them all young. He doesn't let everything kind of go the right way. I doesn't surprise me that Peter Pan might turn a little bit to the evil side.
Right. I mean, with this TV show, this TV series, I mean, I do think they maybe embellish some storylines a little bit more than what you would expect or want, but it does kind of give that, like you said, the backstory for sure, the levels of complexity, are they going to be able to redeem themselves, kind of thing. Now, I'm just shocked I haven't seen you pull your Rumpelstiltskin move, because you haven't nailed.
Love me some Rumpelstiltskin in that show. Again, for both the bad parts of him and the good parts of him. He's both. He's also Beast, by the way, just a spoiler alert. He plays a lot of different, he wears a lot of different hats in that series.
Yes.
Really good. It's a great show.
Yeah.
We need to rewatch that show.
Yeah. Because I forgot how they also bring Ursula involved in Maleficent, and so
many of the characters you love, including characters that aren't necessarily Disney. There's some Wizard of Oz characters that make some appearances in it. Really check it out. It's good. It's good. If you liked Lost, by the way, it's the same people. A lot of the same people that made Lost did this, and there's even some little Easter eggs in there going back, because this came out after Lost, or I don't know if it was concurrent to the end of Lost, but I think it was right after Lost finished up. But anyway, there are some Easter eggs that you'll find throughout it that tie into Lost, which if you're a Losty, you'll find funny and interesting for sure. Very cool. So why do we love these villains? What makes it? These are bad people. They're really, really bad people. They do bad things. They kill people. They kill animals. They do all sorts of bad stuff. Why do we love them? What do you think, Michelle? Why is it?
Well, I think there's several reasons. On the superficial side of it, looking at it, they are, sassy. We talk about being comical, larger than life, just compelling in some regards, and they have fun songs, that we can love. I mean, I think that draws us to them. Maybe not say why we like them, but kind of like, oh wow, I'm intrigued by that character. I think obviously too, because they can steal the show. They can be bigger than what the protagonist is at times, because they're trying to deliver something or be that conflict in the story. I think sometimes there is that we root for the bad guy, a lot of times, or the underdog, maybe not the bad guy, but the underdog. And, if you feel like something's been taken away from somebody, you kind of feel like, well, maybe they do need to get something, back, or just our own personal struggles in life, and say, I kind of understand. I can, I'm not saying I'm going to get dark or get to be evil, but we can never, necessarily control our thoughts. It's what we act on them, right? And sometimes we have bad thoughts. And I think you can definitely relate to sometimes, especially, again, if you feel whether it's the purpose of revenge or getting passed over for something, to say, gosh, I hope they get it, because I would want to get it. If I was in their shoes, I would want that.
I think you nailed it right there. I think the fact, and I was mentioning it just a little bit ago, how we're well-rounded people, that we have a light side, and hopefully our light side shines brightly, and that is most of it. But we all have a little piece of dark side in us somewhere. That sometimes you have these thoughts. Sometimes, hopefully you don't act on them, but hopefully there are things there. And some of you embraces because you think about, like, oh, I'd really like to do this, but I know that's not the right thing to do. You do the right thing. That's what keeps us normal. That's what keeps us sane. That's what keeps us good people. The fact that you can understand sometimes when somebody takes it the wrong way, maybe not kill people, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Trying to get to power, trying to get to that position, trying to get money, whatever it might be. You kind of relate to it and understand. I'm also going to say this. I feel like villains, for the most part, are meteor characters, especially when a villain is done really well. The heroes, they try so much to make them all be great and amazing and fantastic, and they're all really, really good. But, villains, they have lots of different sides. There's different interesting things about them. They are the meteor character. I know a lot of actors will tell you, I'd rather play a villain than a good guy, because I can really get into the psyche and I find it more interesting to do. So that's why I feel like we relate to that as well. And then, yes, you throw in the humor that they've been written for, that they can pull off so well, and they can say whatever they want because they're bad. We all want to say whatever we want at times, but you can't. They can, because they're bad. So they need to say whatever you want, and it makes you laugh. It's like, I can't believe you just said that. So great.
That's true. That's true. I think too, maybe if you look at it from the other perspective of who's in the film, like, are these other characters not as believable? If you think of somebody like a Snow White, and seems like a perfection person, right? It's like, is that a real person? Is that the person you would necessarily believe as real? I'm not saying that for all the films, but certainly for some of the films, or Sleeping Beauty or whatever, all these characters, you feel, are they believable because they're just too perfect?
Yeah, especially early on, you go back to those early days, it was good, it was bad, and there was very little gray area between the characters there. And I think that that has evolved a little bit as well.
Right.
You are starting to see those areas of gray, even with the heroes more recently. Still, they are good, and they're made sure to be made good.
Right.
But you see a little bit more of that. They've become a little bit more well-rounded as well.
Well,
but man, it's been that case for a long time with the villains.
Yeah. In what you were just saying about that, if you look at Big Hero 6, how Hero was starting to go down a path that was very dark and very scary. His friends, or actually his brother's friends, weren't able to really turn him, but it was, definitely Baymax who was able to connect with his heart to say, this is the person you really are, not this.
And the French, I want to say this because this is, I think when you talk about bad guys, you need to talk about mental health. It's important to stay in touch with people. Reach out to your friends, say hello to your friends, make sure they're doing okay, check in with friends. And that's what the people that hardly knew Hero, they knew his brother very well, but they hardly knew Hero, yet they were constantly reaching out to him to make sure he was okay. And yes, Baymax, the healer that he is, was the biggest part of that for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But
good point.
Be sure. It's still mental. I think it's Mental Health Awareness Month.
I think so.
Yes. Always check in on a friend from time to time. It's very important, especially if you haven't talked to them in a while. Make sure they're doing all right, and see if there's anything you can do to help them out. Very, very important, because you don't want them going down this villain path, except for to watch them and enjoy them and laugh at them.
Exactly.
So, I'm curious, do you have a favorite villain or two? I think at some point we'll go down a list of our favorite villains, maybe for Halloween time. But do you have a favorite villain or two?
I think one of my favorites to watch is Hades. I think for a lot of reasons. I think he's fun to watch. I love the interplay that he has, even with his sidekicks. The voice actor I adore, with James Wood. So I think that kind of also draws me in with that character. And again, I feel like he's just, it's funny to see somebody who thinks that they can change a prediction, which, I mean, we know with time travel and stories of predictions and everything, you're like, okay, you can't change it.
Yeah.
It is going to be what it is, but it's funny to see the path that he takes. I don't know. What about you?
I love so many of them.
Mhm.
I love them for so many different reasons. I love Dr. Facilier. I just think he's so smarmy and so devious and so good. Mother Gothel is just bad and nasty and tries to play up as the perfect mother.
Right.
And she's just, I mean, the fact that she basically is telling it makes it look like she's telling Rapunzel that I love you, but she's telling her hair that I
Right.
love you the whole time throughout the movie. But one I want to talk about that I don't think we discussed here that is really probably my favorite is Judge Claude Frollo.
Oh,
He is so bad.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's so righteous and feels like he's doing the right thing for religious purposes and feels like he is the only one that knows, and yet he's falling into lust and greed and he's power and all this stuff that is really against everything that he is behind.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
And shows, and it's just he is such a meaty, interesting bad guy, and it starts off right from the beginning song of the Bells of Notre Dame,
Right.
of who is the monster and who is the man.
Right.
And it's this whole story. That's what that whole story is based on. So that's why he is just bad. And I love it. I love it about him.
Yeah, good point. I don't know how we skipped him in the other things, but I'm glad you brought it up because yes, that is he's a remarkable character for sure. And like you said, he's manipulating the doctrines or whatever to his benefit or to what he's feeling, and he's letting, again, you can't always, you can't change what your thought may have come into your mind, but what are you acting on?
Persecuting people because they don't necessarily believe what he believes in. And yes, down to where I'm going to murder or kill somebody unless they love me.
Right.
It's like, it's just so
slimy.
Yeah, it is. It's great. So good. Anyway, love to know who your favorite villains are. Why are they your favorite villains? Please hit us up. Gmail account, social media. Let us know. We'll share them on an upcoming show. And yes, at some point we are going to count down our 5 favorite villains, probably for Halloween. I think that would
that seems for sure like a good topic. Plus, again, remind everybody that this week is the new show over at Hollywood Studios, Disney Hollywood Studios, and again, how they're really embracing the villains as entertainers for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe as part of my tip later on, I have a little villain tip for you later on.
All right.
Yep. And that is our time for Memorial Day weekend, remembering our favorite Disney villain.